Okay, what's good, everyone? It's been a while since we've made another segment on the Bedsheet BallZone podcast. I'm here
Quite a
with
bit of
my
time.
wonderful co-host. Look how cute he is with his haircut.
Ooh, okay,
Ooh, faded. Okay, okay,
okay.
okay. But yeah, so in this episode, it's been a while. We're going to be summarizing a little bit of March Madness later, and then we're going to do another segment of buy or sell. And we're just gonna hop right in our first segment, which is we're gonna be rediscussing
Right.
the wide receiver draft class rankings because it was kind of under. I didn't do as much preparation for that as I wanted, and there were some things that I've already kind of changed my thoughts on. So I wanted to retouch that now that it's
Hmm.
the month of the draft, and so I wanted this to be like our final consensus picks and our overall thoughts on each prospects. Um, so yeah, let's just hop right into it, I guess.
Yeah.
So I have
You
my
want to lead us
top
off?
10. Yeah, I have my top 10 wide receiver rankings. Do you want to go from the top or from the bottom? It'd probably be easier to do from the top, right?
Yeah, let's do from the top.
Okay. So I believe last time we made this podcast, I talked about Marvin Harrison being number one. And
Hmm.
now I have Marvin Harrison at one. No surprise there.
Yep.
He is a can't miss wide receiver prospect. This is the best wide receiver prospect we've seen in any draft class ever. He is just he's an absolute complete wide receiver. He's going to be someone that you can just throw up 50-50 balls to. He's a jump ball receiver. He can run any route in the game. He can be a deep threat. He can literally do anything you want out of a wide receiver. He has a high
Yeah.
floor, high ceiling. You literally cannot miss. And like I've said, he benefits from the name. His dad was Marvin Harrison, one of the greatest receivers of all time. And it's almost like it's in the stars. It's almost like
Yeah.
it's written
Yeah.
in his destiny to
It's
be
it's so amazing
a
how
stud.
good both of them are. Like
Yeah.
father son is crazy.
Yeah. Marvin Harrison, his dad, the senior, as a prospect, it wasn't as, kind of talented or as hyped up as
Mm-mm,
his son.
definitely
Um,
not.
but that's what I'm saying. Like his son benefits, Marvin Harrison
Yeah.
Jr.
Yeah.
benefits from his dad being one of the greatest of all time. It's like when you're his son and you also have a player profile like when you're a wide
Oh,
receiver at Ohio State and you've been that good for
killing it.
every year you've kind of been there and you've been an
Yeah.
impact player at that kind of high level, you're gonna have all the hype and talent in the world. And people used to have him going number one overall to the Bears when people thought Justin Fields was going to kind of be the guy there, and a lot of people weren't really thinking of that as a reach. Like this is that good of a prospect to where you could even see him go. He's going to be top five no matter what.
Yeah.
Where he falls in the top five, we don't know. It's probably going to be three, four, or five, but you never know with how drafts can go. Only so many mock drafts can predict what's actually going to happen. But this is the cream of the crop. This is the best wide receiver in the draft class.
Yeah.
Um,
My number one was Marvin Harrison as well. And like there's enough said on him already. He's gonna be a baller wherever he goes. He's the best wide receiver in the class.
yeah,
Not
and
much more.
the scary thing with him is, like Ethan kind of said, no matter where he goes, it's like almost if he's going to have, if he goes to the Cardinals, if he has Kyler Murray throwing to him, that's a very good final destination
Yeah.
for him.
It's
If the
it's gonna be hard
Patriots,
for him not to succeed.
exactly, and if the Patriots draft him at three overall, they don't have a QB, but it's not going to matter. If they have Jacoby Brissett throwing to him, he's going to be good.
Yeah.
It's almost like no matter what scheme or who he has throwing to him or what talent he has surrounding him, it's almost like everybody consensusly has this dude being a stud.
Hmm.
And that's why he has to be number one, even though that this is a loaded wide receiver draft class ranking. You literally have to have him one because he's can't miss.
Yeah.
Um, and so
He's
yeah.
he's pretty good.
And the annoying thing about Maserati Marv, shout out Ryan. Ryan's a big Maserati Marv fan, but
Of
the
course he
thing
is.
that's annoying about him to me is because I don't want to put him one because my number two Malik Neighbors is someone that I think is literally on that level, but it's foolish and outlandish of me to put him higher than him because you literally
Yeah,
can't because Marvin Harrison's
you
that
can't.
good. But Malik Neighbors, my number two receiver in this class, I want to put him at number one so badly. Like, if you look at him as just an athlete, he's literally Jamar Chase,
Yeah,
athletic wise, and he has the
he is.
stats.
He's him.
LSU. Ethan, do you want to talk more about Malik Neighbors?
No, I mean, like we've watched his highlights, or once again, Jaden Daniels highlights, but like on the highlight reels, like you can see how much of an athlete he is. I mean, he's like 6 foot, I think, 200
Yeah,
pounds probably. Like he's a big boy. He's an athletic kid. He's young, puts up the numbers, like insane numbers at LSU. I think he had
yeah.
like 14 touchdowns, some crazy
Statistically
like that.
wise, he like was the best receiver in college last year, even over
Yeah.
Marv.
I
Um,
think Rome Odunze was
yeah.
actually.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, arguably, like
Yeah.
he definitely Rome, Marv, and Neighbors, they all had crazy good seasons. And like overall, it's kind of pick your poison. Like all three of those guys were studs. One
Yeah.
thing that I do want to mention real quick about Malik Neighbors that I think is it's very tempting for me to want to put him at one because I think his potential is it is the same, like feeling wise, I think it's the same as Marvin Harrison, if not higher. And I've been a big proponent of and I've been a big sayer of that. Like I'm
Mhm.
truly I'm a believer in Malik Neighbors being better than Marvin Harrison at one point. Like I can genuinely see Malik Neighbors having this ceiling where he is better than Marvin Harrison.
Yeah.
And the reason why I think that is because when you look at the film, we all know how good of an athlete he is. He ran a sub 4.4. He had a 40-inch vertical, had a great broad jump. Everything that Marvin Harrison did at his pro day was unbelievable. But when you look at
Uh-huh.
the film, it translates. And there's a lot of fast wide receivers. Like a lot of people can run
Crazy fast.
4.28s, 4.33s. Like
Yeah.
you can find faster receivers than him, I guess. But when it comes to speed in game into running routes, Malik Neighbors is the fastest receiver I've like literally ever seen
All
as a prospect. Because this man
right, buddy, pipe
in
down.
it going in and out of his routes, he's full speed and he can stop on a dime. And every time you watch Jaden Daniels throw a deep ball, Malik Neighbors has like 20 yards of separation because he's literally because cornerbacks have to respect the curl
Yeah.
routes where he stops on a dime and comes back to the ball because he's either going to be wide open doing that or he's going to be wide open in the end zone. You
Hmm.
literally that you can't guard him in that sense of his routes and speed are just such a good combo and they fit each other so good that I think that he's also a can't miss prospect and I would even draft him at top five. I think he's right there.
Personally, I think you're overhyping him a little bit because you might think this is a little bit of a hot take, but I was like deciding hard between my one and two whether to put Odunze at two above
Mm-hmm.
Neighbors.
Yeah,
I
and
think I that's just like how much like how high level this wide receiver class is.
mhm. And you bring up a good point. Both of our number threes are going to be Rome Dunze, I
Yeah.
assume, unless you had him at two.
No, I had Neighbors at two.
Okay, so and the reason why I like Neighbors a little bit more than a Dunze, we'll talk about him in a second, but is the fact that the route running is so polished already for his age. One thing that is kind of skeptical about Malik Neighbors is he doesn't really have a good contested catch percentage. Like he's not.
Yeah.
You want to see him with someone like his size and his like you want to see him be a little bit more physical. He does kind of struggle with contested catches, and
Hmm.
you know, but I don't think that
And
kind of matters. Like
that's why LSU had Brian Thomas.
yeah, I like at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to matter. I think even if Daniel Jones, if you were to go to number six to the Giants, if he had Daniel Jones throwing him, I think
Would
his
suck.
route tree and his fluidity in and out of any kind of routes is just going to be such a problem for any defensive coordinator to
Hmm.
scheme against. Like it's almost like you have to have someone over the top every single play, or else Malik Neighbors is just going to be a firecracker and
Yeah,
explode the defense. Like I just think that his route running is so good. Like it's like literally, I think as a prospect, he's already up there. Even when he's a rookie, is going to be as one of the best route runners in the league as a statistic standpoint.
yeah. I
Obviously,
think my entire
obviously
top
he's not going to
three.
be that. He's not going to be that crazy as a rookie when you look at film as a route runner. But when you look at the stats and how he's going to get open, I think he's going to be up there statistically.
Yeah, my entire top three. I think Harrison, Neighbors, and Odunze, they will all be ballers, like
Yeah,
from the start. I think
they're
it's going
all
to be
top
like
10
an
worthy. Like it's
unprecedented
ridiculous.
freshman class and or rookie
Yeah.
class in the NFL.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point. Like literally like if Neighbors didn't exist and Marvin Harrison didn't exist, Rome Odunze would literally be just as hyped up as those other two
Yeah,
because
exactly.
again, he our number three wide receiver in this class is going to be that good. And last podcast I kind of talked about, and that's why I want to talk about it again because I kind of butchered Odunze. I didn't watch a lot of his film. I didn't know a
Yeah,
whole
you
lot of
did.
things. And I talked about him of how I felt like he didn't play
He's too
physical.
small.
I watched the tape. I
Oh
watched a
my.
lot of the film and like in film breakdowns and analysis from other people. And Odunze is 100% legit. The Michigan the Michigan game that I saw was a completely different player than what I saw on the
Yeah.
rest of the film. Odunze is going to body your favorite cornerback. He's going to go up and catch any ball you throw him, and he's going to be just as big as a problem as Marvin Harrison and
Dude's
Malik Neighbors.
dude's 6'3", like 220. Like he's a
Yeah,
big boy.
he's an animal.
Uh-huh.
And again, sometimes you don't even see it because he's also just that good as he's not
Yeah,
just like
he's
some dummy
boy
Boldy
shifty.
ball wide receiver where he's just going to go out and just be like a big body receiver. He can also do the slot work. He can
Yeah,
literally do anything on the
he can
field that
get
you
in
need
there.
him to.
He has the
And
hands too. Crazy hands. He had like a 1.2% drop rate in all of college.
and the film backs it up too. There's numerous plays of him Odelling contested catches, one hand grabs over the middle
Yeah.
of the field from Michael Penix throwing it on his back shoulder. He can adjust in the ball in the air if like it's going to be on an inside leverage throw and he's on the outside. He's going to stop, break in, and find a way to catch the ball no matter what. No matter what the situation is, Odunze is going to come down with the ball. And this top three wide receivers I mean, fantasy wise, I'm excited to see where they go and how
Yeah.
high they're going to be drafted because I
I
mean,
wouldn't be
the sky
opposed
is
to
literally the
reaching
limit
for
for
one.
all of them. Yeah,
Yeah.
the sky is the limit for all of them. And all three of them, even though you want to see them go into good situations and in good organizations where they know how to run offense, so that way you can really see the potential there right away. But even if they go to poverty teams like the Giants or poverty teams like the Patriots or wherever they kind of go,
Yeah.
they're gonna be ballers no matter what because they are just that good and fine
Hmm.
tuned as prospects.
Yeah.
Um,
By the way, Royals game finally started.
let's go. Thank you for
Yeah.
telling me that because I've been waiting since noon to watch this game and it's 5 o'clock my time. I've
Yeah.
been trying to watch this game. I
I've been
threw it
waiting
in a
since
couple
11.
parlays too. Um, but yeah, so do you have anything else that you want to say about the top three? Because those are all very obvious.
Not
I
really.
want to make sure that
I
you
think
have something to say if you want to.
we hit on the fact that all three of them are going to be absolute ballers in the NFL.
Yeah.
Most likely
Where
straight away too.
if you could pick one of the players to go at in a specific realistic location, who and where would you want
Dude,
them to go?
honestly, I really don't know. Mi- I would say neighbors to the Patriots just
Okay.
because I know that
Like maybe if
Drew,
they traded down or something?
yeah, because I know that Drew probably wouldn't like not taking a quarterback.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So,
I
yeah,
am gonna have Malik Neighbors going to Chargers at number 5. I really want to see that happen just because I want to see Herbert. really
Mm.
benefit from having a star-studded wide receiver and not Quentin Johnson, who drops literally every fucking ball thrown to him, even though it's a perfect pass. I think I would love to watch Justin Herbert just absolutely terrorize the league with Malik Neighbors. That would probably be my dream destination for that. I would also love to see someone like Rome Odunze go to Chicago with Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and Caleb Williams. I don't care who the offensive coordinator is. You literally cannot have a bad offense with that. You literally it is un there's no excuse if you have that wide receiving core with Caleb Williams coming in. They're just going to they're going to torch the NFC North. I mean,
Yeah,
that would be so much fun. And
that
fantasy
would be a
wise,
very cool place for him to
that would
go.
just be a dream fantasy wise. It's like who would you want?
Yeah,
Who's a wide receiver one? Um, but yeah, so that's our top three. Um, number four. Do you want to go ahead and say your number four wide receiver? I think we're gonna have the same guy, but
I have Brian Thomas, number 4.
Brian Thomas Jr.
Yep.
Yes,
Okay. One,
I
one,
feel
two,
like
three,
I
four.
I
Still
kind
the
of wanted to
same.
include him in like the consensus like top four. I think that's like everyone's kind of top four in that order. It
Yeah.
goes Marv, Neighbors, Adunze, and then Brian Thomas Jr. And again, if the big three, Adunze, Neighbors, and Marvin, didn't exist, you would see Brian Thomas Jr. kind of getting that love like Corey Davis, where he could be getting that
Yeah.
higher end of the draft. This is also a stacked draft class at every position, so I don't know about that, but Brian Thomas Jr. is
Depending depending on
otherworldly.
his depending on his location, I think he could be really good. But if he gets
Yeah.
put in a situation where he's like their number one guy, I think there will be a drop off between the top 3 and him. But if he's
Oh yeah.
put in a situation where he's behind like a star, I think he could be really good.
Yeah. I think that's a good point that you bring up. This is like the first wide receiver that we're going to be talking about where there is like a little bit of bust potential. I don't want to call Brian Thomas Jr. like bust potential,
Hmm.
but like if he does have a bad quarterback in a bad system, he's not a kind of guy that's just going to go out and save your like offense. Like he is going to have some pieces around him to really let his strengths kind of strive, like he's a very talented. I mean, this is probably the most physical specimen in the draft, I'd say. Um I forgot the numbers on like height and weight exactly, but like when you watch the film, there's legitimately no doubt in your mind that this is a first round wide receiver. When we were watching the Jaden Daniel LSU Heisman highlights of Neighbors and Thomas, like obviously the highlight was on Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors. And you kind of knew about Brian Thomas. At the time, I didn't really know about Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah.
And I could not believe the catches that Brian Thomas Jr. was coming down with on a contested catch radius. And he's also a deep threat. Like Brian Thomas Jr. can
He's
literally he's like a mini Rome Dunze, if you ask me.
yeah,
But
he
like
he
it's
he is.
disrespectful to say mini because he's just such a physically dominant
Yeah.
specimen.
I'm pretty sure
Um
he's taller than him as
yeah, I
well.
think he's like I want to say he's like 6'4", 220.
Yeah. He
He's ridiculous.
cool stat from him. He had the most amount of touchdowns in all of college last year. 17
Does not
touchdowns.
surprise me. Does not
Yeah.
17? That's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
17
Dog, he's like,
touchdowns in 13 games.
yeah, and like a player comp that I would have for him, and since we're talking about like touchdowns and like kind of like red zone threats, I would say he's just kind of like a more speedy, kind of athletic Mike Evans. Like he really does kind of have like that big body kind of receiver mentality to him. Like he likes the 50-50 balls. Like it's not 50-50 when he's going up against the cornerback. Like he truly just not only that, like there's a lot of times where you see a lot of physically dominant wide receivers and they just don't know how to catch the ball at the right point of time in the air.
He
He's got it
does.
keyed down. Like
Yeah.
he knows
Yeah.
exactly how to track down deep balls. He knows
Yeah.
when to
When to
have the
jump.
right catching point. He knows
Yeah.
when to jump. He knows when to beat the cornerback.
Yeah. Great
And
body movement in the air too.
yeah,
Like he
body
can
control.
control
Like
himself so well.
yeah, Brian Thomas Jr. is 100% a stud, and I'm extremely excited to see where he goes because
Yeah.
that's a bigger question mark than any receiver we've kind of talked about yet.
Uh-huh. He's
Is he going to
also
go top 15 or is he going to fall to the late first round? It's like we got to see what teams are going to kind of prioritize, whether it be offensive line or weapons.
yeah, he's also like probably gonna put on pounds because he's not the biggest guy. But
Yeah,
once he gets to NFL, he'll probably put on like 10 pounds, 15 pounds, and he'll be huge.
yeah. And it's kind of crazy to think about him and Neighbors on the same team,
Same team. Yeah.
kind of just like Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. Like this
Uh-huh.
LSU, like I think it's so cringy to like kind of think about that because it was just so recent, like so recent ago that we saw
Yeah,
Justin
like it
Jefferson and
was
Jamar Chase.
3 years
But it's like
ago.
it's literally like bar for bar, like it's the same thing.
Uh-huh.
Um,
It's just a
and that's
repeat.
and I'm trying not to let that bias, like knowing that it's LSU dynamic duo with a Heisman
Hmm.
winner on like a high powered offense. Like I'm not trying to let that bias boost them up higher in my dress, but it's like it's what I see. Like
Yeah.
it's on film, statistically it's there. It's like that's literally just what I'm seeing as a
Uh-huh.
fan of the NFL.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a shame that that team had a terrible defense.
yeah, I mean, like offensively wise, they're just like the
Yeah.
2019 LSU Joe Burrow. Like
Uh-huh.
they're literally offensively the
They're
kind of the
just as
same.
dominant offensively. Yeah.
Yeah, so far we've talked about four wide receivers. So far we got four absolute studs. We could literally see all four of them go top 15.
Uh-huh.
Like Brian Thomas Jr. could literally go as high as like number 15 or 16 to the Colts.
Yeah.
Um like this guy is the absolute limit for those four. Um, this is kind of where the list can kind of get a little bit more debatey. Do you
Hmm.
have a number fifth ranked guy on your
Yeah.
list?
Uh-huh.
Who is your number five? I'm actually kind of curious. I don't know.
I've got Keon Coleman there.
I also have Keon
Yeah.
Coleman at my number five.
I
Um,
really want the Chiefs to get Keon Coleman. I think if we want him, we'll
yeah.
have to trade up, but I
Hmm.
I hope we get him. I
Hmm.
especially now without
Yeah, especially with
Rice
Rasheed Rice kind of
probably.
yeah, that's why I'm kind of interested with like the whole Rasheed Rice thing going astray
Yeah.
because it's like is that going to push the front office to like actually make a move
I
and
think
get
it
an
does.
offensive stud?
I
I
think
think
it
so
will.
too. I think because it's like if worse comes to worse, you go out and draft a high level weapon, you just add them to the roster. Like if
Exactly.
Rice comes back, then who cares? The more the
Sweet.
merrier.
We
You know what
get
I'm
Rice
saying?
back. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. My number five is Keon Coleman, and a lot of people that like Keon Coleman's like one of the few polarizing wide receivers. Like you either love him as a prospect or you're going to not think
Yeah.
highly of him at all.
Uh-huh.
And I'm fully aboard the Keon Coleman train because of not necessarily him at Florida State, of him at Michigan. And we kind of
Yeah.
talked about this the last time we made the
Uh-huh.
podcast, but him at Michigan State, I think was a more NFL ready and a more NFL kind of wide receiver comp. Like I think
Yeah.
that what the routes that we saw him running and the way that he was utilized at Michigan State, I prefer him as that kind of prospect than him at Florida State. They kind of just made him a bully ball kind of guy, even though that's like not really his strength, even though he's just tall and big,
Uh-huh.
like, and he can do that. That's not a strength. And that's kind of what he was predominantly doing at Florida State.
Yeah. Definitely. That is very true on that. I didn't really watch him that much or
Hmm.
like watch any film on him at Michigan, so I don't really know like how he played there.
Hmm.
But
I,
I think that he's a great target for the Chiefs and we should go get him.
yeah, I, I mean, I don't see a world where the Chiefs really trade up to move up a couple spots to get him. And I don't think he's going to fall all the way to 30, even though
Hmm.
maybe he could. Um, but yeah, so to go back on like him at Michigan State, the way that he was used, he was kind of used as like a bigger, like kind of like slot, like route running kind of guy, and not like this bully ball 50-50 ball. And don't get like I don't want to get this twisted. Like he can definitely do that. Like his size, when you're a wide receiver at that kind of size, you're going to have to be good at that because that's obviously what a lot of offenses, especially at
Hmm.
the NFL, they're going to want you to do that. Like they're going to want you to be that big X out wide kind of guy who can just kind of throw beyond the hatches to where the quarterback can kind of have that 50-50 ball there when nothing else is open. But I also think that if you put him in the slot, I think the sky's the limits for him as well. Like I could even see like if he's put in the right offensive scheme, and I think if he's utilized well and Brian Thomas doesn't really go to the right fit for him and his skill sets, I could
Yeah.
see a world where Keon Coleman's literally better than him. And what
Yeah.
that like pains me to say, because I love Brian Thomas Jr. and I think he's an absolute stud. But Keon Coleman is so shifty and he's got such he doesn't have the most polished like route running abilities that you've seen out of anyone.
Yeah.
But when you get him in open space, it's just like the 50-50 ball. Like when you're that big of a human, it's hard to bring you down. And he's so
Hmm.
fast that like watching him in open field and like his cuts inside to the middle, it's like a free 20 yards. Like if you can give him an inch of separation in the open field, he's going to run over the middle for 20 yards.
Yeah. Yeah. He's one of those guys that like isn't good at he's good at everything, but not great at everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And like and it's kind of hard because like I said, I could see a lot of teams wanting to take him just to be that big physical guy, but it's like I really want to see him. Like I would love to see him in a Chiefs
Hmm.
uniform just because I know that they would cook with him. I
Yeah.
know that they would use every valuable asset that he has in his
Yeah.
repertoire,
He would
and
find a space with Patty.
he would light up defenses.
Uh-huh.
And so potential wise, I have Keon Coleman at 5. I could see him being a lot lower on the list if he goes to the wrong situation. But I think if he's utilized right, he's number 5.
Yeah.
Um, I think we're actually gonna have the same number 6, which is kind of funny because a lot of people wouldn't have this guy at 6, but my number 6 receiver in this draft behind Keon Coleman is Xavier Leggett out of South Carolina. And this dude, I know we've kind of talked about big body receivers, but this might be the biggest dude on the list.
Hmm.
Um, Xavier Leggett is terrifying to look at if you're on the defense. I mean, this is DK Metcalf 2.0. This
Yeah.
dude is enormous. This dude is gigantic. And he moves like DK Metcalf. This dude has burners.
He's so
This dude
fast.
is like
He's
this
ridiculously
dude's a
fast.
deep threat. And he's built like DK Metcalf. Obviously, my player comp for him is a better version of DK Metcalf. I There was a lot of things that I thought DK Metcalf got away with in college,
Hmm.
and he hasn't quite translated in the NFL. Like he's still a very good NFL wide receiver, DK Metcalf, but he also at times I feel like has really bad drop problems, and I think he's kind of got butterfingers at time. And I think Xavier Leggett can kind of have that same problem. Another thing that a lot of people don't like about Leggett is the fact that he's old. I think he's like 24, I want
Yeah,
to say. And
he's like
as
23 or like close to turning
yeah,
24.
he's an older prospect, but um I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because if you hear the story behind him, he had like a rough like I'm pretty sure someone in like his family died or something, and like he stayed at South Carolina as like a true freshman,
Yeah.
and he like stayed there even though he wasn't getting the most playing time, and he had like a COVID season and everything, and he wasn't really a good wide receiver until his last year at South Carolina. But then again, I don't think South Carolina had a lot of talent on that offense before Spencer Rattler got there, and I think
Hmm.
Spencer Rattler getting there, he benefited a lot. I just
Oh
think
yeah, for sure.
I
Definitely
think it's
elevated
kind
the
of just
offense.
I think it was just kind of time telling for Xavier Leggett to kind of break out. And I think it's kind of there. And I feel like he has a lot of good traits that can translate into the NFL.
Hmm.
Um, his floor is not really high though, just because he kind of has like a little Quentin Johnston to him for me, where he's just kind of just like a really good athlete and
Yeah.
can be good in college, but it's like a lot of stuff doesn't translate in the NFL, it's like what really are you? You're just an athlete running routes.
Uh-huh.
If you're not going to be a wide receiver, like any superhuman athlete can put on pads and go run routes.
Yeah.
But it's like are you actually going to be a wide receiver, get open, get catches, and be productive? Only time will tell with Leggett, but I'm going to bank on him being pretty good,
Yeah.
and he's going to be my number 6
What is
receiver.
so my number 6 is actually not Leggett. I've
Really?
I've
Okay.
moved Leggett down. Yeah. So
Okay.
Leggett my
Which
7.
I get. Like
My
I
number
get the
6,
skepticism
yeah.
behind him.
It's really mainly because I'm a Chiefs fan and he doesn't have the greatest hands. And there's
Yeah.
a lot of wide receivers in this class who have really good hands.
Hmm.
And one of those people being AD Mitchell. He's like
Okay.
kind of what we were just saying about Keon Coleman. Like he's pretty good at everything, but not great at one specific thing. Like he's
Yeah.
he's the best in the slot, I would say. Like just like you were saying about Keon Coleman. He's super shifty. He's 6'4", but he doesn't really have the weight on him. I think he's
Hmm.
like 195, but
Yeah.
he's so shifty. He'd be perfect in the slot, and he also has the downfield potential. Like dude's quick.
Oh yeah. Yeah. My player comp for AD Mitchell, he's lower on my list, so we can talk more about him when he
Hmm.
gets like when he comes up again. But my player comp for him is a poor man's Jamison Williams. So like
No, yeah, I completely get
I
that.
like Jamison Williams. I like Jalen Jamison Williams more as a prospect than I do AD Mitchell. Um, but like obviously, like again, if he were to go to the Chiefs, run a lot of slot and occasionally be that deep threat guy, like I don't see how that he would be a bad receiver. Like,
Yeah.
I don't quite have a first round draft pick on him, but like I definitely have him like mid to early second round, even like maybe late round, depending on like what teams are like picking and what
Yeah.
they're kind of targeting. But I do think that there is a world where he can be a very valuable receiver, but I also think that there's a world where, he's like Jameson Williams and just is kind of And it's like, do you really want to spend a first rounder on you know?
Hmm.
Um,
See, I think realistically, the Chiefs draft him if he falls.
really? You think they'd take
Yeah,
him?
I think they would take him because most
Yeah.
likely we're not going to get Keon Coleman. But if
Uh,
if AD falls, I think we get him.
okay. I like that. Well, um, do you want to go and say your number 7 or do you want me to go?
Well, my 7 is Leggett.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Um, I can understand where you have AD Mitchell higher than Leggett because of the drop problems and just like as fine-tuned of a
Hmm.
wide receiver. It's like you
I
would want
I
someone.
also I also think Leggett just has that bit more of potential
Yeah, for
because
sure.
he's an athlete, like
Yeah,
mainly more than a
100%.
like skilled football player. I
Yeah,
mean, he's
I get what you're
amazing,
saying.
but
And
I
that's where
really
kind of
like
like
him.
the Quentin Johnston comp
Yeah.
kind of came from me,
Uh-huh.
where it's just like they
Yeah,
kind of feel like
exactly.
the same player. I feel like Leggett is going to be a little bit better than that because Quentin Johnston's fucking ass. Um, but my number 7 is actually McConkey out of Georgia.
Really?
I used to not even have this dude in like my top 8 or anything
Dude,
like
I've
that
been thinking it
until
would be pretty cool for the Chiefs to draft him
I was gonna
and
say I
him be
think that if
the white guy like the Patriots had for so long with
yeah,
Wes Welker and Julian Edelman.
and honestly, I think that if both AD Mitchell and Lad McConkey were there, I think they would take Lad McConkey over him because I think that he's one of the more polished wide receivers when you get outside the top 3. Like dude's
Hmm.
got good hands, good footwork, good body control. He kind of like we said, he can kind of do a little bit of everything. He's not really going to be a deep threat or really kind of like a physical kind of guy, but I like him as a wide receiver. Like he's just kind of like a less athletic and significantly less talented kind of Garrett Wilson in my eyes. Like I know that's like such a bad like player comp, but like that's kind of like what he reminds me of. It's just like when I think of Garrett Wilson, I just think of a wide receiver. Like I think of a person that's like I can throw to, like Justin
Yeah.
Jefferson, Garrett Wilson. Those are wide receivers. They're not deep ball threats. They're not physical wide receivers. They're not slot guys. Like those are just wide receivers. and I kind of get that vibe out of Lad. Um, and so that's why he's going to be my number 7. Like, um, I don't know if it's just because he's white and that's why I want to think of him as not super athletic, but that's kind of just what I'm getting from him. Like, when I watch the film, he doesn't look like this guy who's going to blow you away physically,
Yeah.
but I do think that he is polished enough as a wide receiver to where he is going to be. Um, I could see him going in the first round. I don't think he will. I could see him going late first round, but I definitely think kind of like how Josh Downs was for the Colts, where he was like a mid second round and he was a steal. I think if he's going to be a great value in the second round of this draft, and he could even fall to like the third round.
Hmm.
And I think whatever team is going, because that's kind of like where his asking price is going to be like second, third round. And I think whatever team takes that chance in that draft pick, I think they're going to get a great value.
Yeah, I was watching a YouTube video. They had such a good NFL comp, but I cannot remember who it was. I need to go back and look at it because you would completely agree with it if you saw it. But I do agree with a lot of that. I think Lad, he's once again really big on the situation and the quarterback. I think the quarterback and coach is the most important thing on where he goes. Like he has to
Yeah.
be in a place where the coach uses him like solely in the slot. Because he was at Georgia, he
Yeah.
was used out wide quite a bit. But
Hmm.
he won't be able to do that in the NFL because of his
Yeah.
size.
That is
He's
a good
like six
point.
foot and like 180. So
Yeah.
like he's not the biggest guy. He can't play outside and he's not the fastest, but his
Yeah.
acceleration is crazy. His route running is great. And he would be just so good in the slot, just finding the spaces, which is why he would be really good at the Chiefs too. Like
Yeah.
he would find that space and Patty can just sling that. He loves to do it with
Yeah.
Kelsey. That's exactly what Kelsey does. Yeah.
Okay. So we've kind of gone through um, our top 7 so far. And then, real quick, I kind of want to just round out like my top 10. I actually don't have AD Mitchell as my highest um, Texas wide receiver. I have Xavier Worthy
Wow.
at number 8. And I'm not even trying to let it be like this draft combine. Oh my gosh, I saw his 40 time. Like he has to be good. Like it's not even like I think Xavier Worthy's just better because he runs faster. I think that Xavier Worthy's a more complete wide receiver than AD Mitchell. Um, and I know production wise, AD Mitchell was more productive in college. So it's like, why would I think that Xavier Worthy's going to be more productive in the NFL? But it's like that's just kind of like what I'm seeing. Like when it comes to film and when it comes to projecting, I don't know. I like Xavier Worthy a little bit more than AD Mitchell, and I like if I'm not even going to argue if you think AD Mitchell is going to be better because it's like there really is not a huge argument that I can have against it. But
Yeah,
I
that
do think Xavier
this is
Worthy is a
something that
more complete
I would
receiver.
call this is something I would call a hot take.
Yeah, I I don't have a whole lot of good explanation or stats to back it up other than just what I see on film. I think Xavier Worthy is just a more complete um, receiver, and I think they're kind of the same, honestly. Though, like when it
They
comes to
are
skill
very
set, like
similar.
I do think that like it's kind of like a pick or choose kind of thing. But I do slightly lean towards Xavier Worthy just because I think that he might have a little bit more success in translating to the NFL. And that could be something that I get wrong. Like I'm not super confident on having Xavier Worthy at 8.
Hmm.
I think that this is like where the fall off kind of comes when it comes to wide receivers. Like I do think that the top 7 that I had with Lad McConkey at number 7, I think that this is where it kind of falls off into another tier. Um, but yeah, I had Xavier Worthy at 8. And then one guy that I think is going to be a lot higher on my board than a lot of other people are going to have. I have Tez Walker out of UNC at number 9. We had kind of talked about him briefly on the last podcast as well. But the thing that I love about Tez Walker is how he has some of the best deep ball, like ball tracking out of any receiver I've seen in this draft. Obviously, outside of the top 3, because the top 3 are just in a league of their own. But Tez Walker reminds me, and I said this last podcast, he reminds me a lot of Jahan Dotson when it comes to just being able to track the ball and like
Yeah.
body movement. It's hard for cornerbacks to get a read on when the ball's going to be coming down because a lot of times when cornerbacks are beat and they're looking at the receiver and they don't really jump right away, they kind of just let it fall to them.
Uh-huh.
Um, it's so much harder to guard, and I think Tez Walker does such a good job at that. And that's part of the reason why I'm going to be a little bit higher on him than a lot of people probably are. I don't think he's going to be drafted high. Like we could even see he's probably going to fall outside of the second round. Like this is
Yeah.
probably like a third or fourth
Day
round wide
two.
receiver.
Yeah.
But I'm in love with the ability that he shows on tracking down the ball throughout the air. I think he's going to be a nice security blanket for a lot of um, maybe quarterbacks that are struggling. Like a lot of teams that we could see target like a third or fourth, maybe second round kind of weapon that they want to go get their
Mm-hmm.
quarterback. I think Tez Walker, kind of like Lad McConkey, is just going to be a great value at whatever team drafts him.
Yeah.
And I kind of was saying the same thing with other UNC wide receiver Josh Downs. It was just like the fact that Josh Downs wasn't like a highly sought after wide receiver prospect and he fell in the second round of the Colts and had a great rookie year. He was one of the better rookie wide receivers last year. Um, so he's going to fall a little bit, and they ended up benefiting a lot from it. And I think that the same thing is going to go for Tez Walker. I don't know if you have anything that you want to say about him, but
Not really. I don't really know a whole lot about him, but
yeah,
I think you might be overhyping him once again.
I mean, I'm not talking super highly on
No,
him,
I know,
but
I know, I know. I
I just
just
think,
like I've watched like other people's YouTube videos and like other rankings on websites of wide receiver rankings, and he's like
yeah,
not in the top 10 in
yeah.
anything.
Yeah. I guess the reason why I'm gonna have him higher than like I still haven't said AD Mitchell yet. And the reason why I'm gonna have him higher than AD Mitchell is just because it's like I don't see a lot of things that a lot of these other wide receivers are doing that's gonna like really translate or be productive in the NFL. But I at least see specific things about Tez Walker that I think can be very valuable.
Yeah,
And then at number 10, I have 10A, 10B. I have AD Mitchell and Troy Franklin. And I think that if you are high on Troy Franklin and you have him in your top eight, I think you are an idiot. And I don't want to have any credibility when it
I
comes to
agree
ranking
on that.
these wide receivers because I've seen some people put him at number five. And I think that you have to be outlandish because one, he's undersized. Two, I mean, he
Can't
runs
catch.
routes like he's got bricks on his feet. Like he just does not
Yeah,
look like he's a wide like he wasn't extremely productive in college. He wasn't anything special in college. And I think it's just going to be like two or three times harder in the NFL for him to find success. I'm not high on Troy Franklin. He is in my top 10 just because it's like he has experience from Oregon being the top guy. So it's like I'm going to value him a
hmm
little bit more. And like the competition he faced, I'm going to be higher on him than a lot of other, like these other non power five kind of conference players.
yeah,
Um, just because Troy Franklin's been there, he's kind of been that go to guy at Oregon. So he's going to have just kind of like that alpha mentality, kind of like
hmm
he's kind of had the experience that some other guys haven't really had. So that's why he is going to be in my top 10. But overall, I'm just not high on him at all. I think if like I've seen some people like Chiefs fans saying that they want Troy Franklin at the end of the first round, and I'm like, if they
I
take like
don't
Troy
want him.
Franklin over Xavier Leggett, Lad McConkey, AD Mitchell, Tez Walker, I think that they're going to be in shambles. I think that that would
Yeah,
be I think that would be like them when they took Clyde at the end of the first round just to kind of fill that spot. And they could have taken Jonathan Taylor in the second round like the Colts did. I think that we could see a very similar situation if they were to take Franklin over some of these wide receivers. It's like you just do not need to draft this guy in the
yeah.
first round.
That
And I pray he does not get taken something ridiculous like top 25. That would just be
that has been
so
scaring
confusing
me.
to me.
I've seen quite a few mock drafts, including like mock drafts from Chiefs fans too, that have us picking Troy Franklin, and I am not a fan. I agree
Yeah,
with you. I think he looks like, yeah, he's got the top speed. Like he's
yeah.
super quick, but or super fast, but he is not quick. He's not quick off the line. Like it feels like you were saying
Mhm.
he's got bricks on his feet when he's like doing
Yeah,
agile things.
yeah. And
And
one of the
he's
video
got a bad
breakdowns,
drop rate too as well.
yeah, yeah. One of the videos that I had watched breaking down some of the wide receiver prospects, showed a lot of film of him like taking negative steps at the line. It's like when you're a wide receiver, you want to burst
Yeah,
off the line, and he's like
insane.
kind of just like he's doing moves in negative space where it's like not making anyone bite on anything. He's just
Hmm.
moving his
Uh-oh.
Mitchell. Um, I think has. I mean, like I think he's all right. Like he's not wowing me or anything. He's definitely like not anywhere close to my top five. Like some people like have AD Mitchell at their number five, like over Keon Coleman and some other guys, but I just don't see that kind of wide receiver in him. I'm
Hmm.
kind of just whatever on him. I think that like yeah, if he were to go to the Chiefs and he like was to go to a really situation, I think he would just be good. Like I think it would take a lot of things to go right for him to be good and productive. And I think that if he goes to the wrong situation, I don't like him at all. So
Yeah, that's fair.
yeah. So that is our updated wide receiver draft prospect rankings. We can probably touch base on it after the draft actually happens.
Yeah,
But
I would be down
at
to
the
do
moment,
that.
like yeah, at the moment, this is like just kind of our rankings as prospects that we kind of see.
Mhm.
So yeah, I just wanted to talk about that again because I butchered some things in the first one and I was not the most prepared. I was just it was a fun segment that we could have talked about in like one of our first episodes.
Yeah.
But yeah, we definitely had to touch base on them again. Okay, so enough talking about the NFL. It isn't March anymore, but March Madness. What a time to be alive.
What a time.
Ethan, you're a bigger college basketball fan, so I'll let you start off talking at the moment because I know you're
Ye-
going to be a bigger
I
fan.
mean, yeah, this March Madness is, I would personally say, been underwhelming. I feel
Yeah,
like it hasn't been a crazy exciting March Madness. It's kind of a lot of it has gone as expected, pretty much. I think UConn's gonna win it all. They're so
every
much
one and
better
two
than
seed made the
everyone.
16 seed.
Yeah, uh-huh. Exactly. But UConn, they're gonna beat everyone. I really thought Illinois could have had a chance if, but they got into foul trouble, and obviously we know the 30-0 run
30
in
to
that
nothing
game.
run is just abysmal.
Terrible.
You can't
Just
even make that up.
utter dominance from UConn. It was insane just how much they were dominating both sides of the floor. And then
Yeah.
the other game on that day was the Clemson Alabama game. That was actually a pretty good game. It was a pretty exciting game. Close, high scoring. I think
Yeah. I had
I
Clemson
had
losing first round to New
Alabama.
Mexico State.
Yeah, same. I did too. I did
So
not think
that
Clemson was going to go this
absolutely
far.
bent me over in my every I did not have Clemson winning a single game in any of my three brackets I made. So they
I think
completely
same.
bent me over
Yeah.
in same thing with Alabama. I think I had them losing round of 32. So in like every bracket. And so they bent me over again. And so like that entire region for me was
Uh-huh.
just washed. Like I just
Yeah.
got cooked that entire region.
Yeah. That
But yeah, to touch base on UConn again, I
yeah,
think
go
my
ahead.
finals matchup is going to be UConn and Purdue. And I think I'm
That's my
slightly
matchup
leaning
too.
towards Purdue only because I have bias in Purdue. But two, I think people are underrating how good Purdue has been this tournament. Like they have dominated every
Yeah.
team they faced. Like they have won comfortably in every single game they've kind of faced. Like
Hmm.
even though the score of that Tennessee game was kind of close, the entire time it felt like Purdue was just like
Yeah,
kind of dominating.
they
And
had they had the lead the whole game pretty much.
yeah, in Tennessee was a argue like they almost was a one. They were almost a one seed. Like that was a good team, and they
Yeah.
beat a very good Creighton team. Like Purdue is very legit, and I still think that UConn should be the favorites. But I do think people are underrating how good Purdue is and
Yeah.
how good Zach Edey is. And a lot of people hate Zach Edey just because he's tall and he's clanky and he's just boring to watch. But it's like, brother, he's good. Like he's legit. Like there's a reason why he's probably going to win back-to-back College Player of the Year. Like
I hate
he's
him.
good.
I hate him.
But yeah, he's not likable.
I
He's
hate him.
boring. He's boring and hard to watch. So
Yeah.
I understand why people hate him, but it's like you can't just excuse the player he is on the court.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I've got the same finals matchup as you and same winner too. My my reasoning is because I think Zach Edey will just be better than Klingon.
Yeah,
And I
he's been
think
otherworldly though. Klingon's been
and the the other fact is that Virginia, the year after they lost their 16 seed, they won it. I've been
yeah.
saying that from like the very begin. I've been saying that before the tournament. Like they've been my favorite for a while, even though I'm not a fan of the team.
Touch base on since we didn't make a podcast before the bracket, but I was not high on Kentucky at all. I had them like losing second round every bracket until I let everybody around me hype up Kentucky. So last second, I had them going to my lead eight. I had them going on a run just for them to get
Mhm.
absolutely fucking demolished by however you say his
Jack
last name,
Golke,
Goki.
Jack Golke.
Were frauds from the second they stepped on the court. They got torched by Oakland, and they are
Hmm.
fraudulent. They have not made it out of the round of 32 in like what fucking a decade is what it feels like, and they've gotten beat
Yeah,
by every low seed imaginable. The only team that wasn't like a super low seed was K-State, but it's like, come on, it's K-State. They are not a basketball team. No
yeah,
offense to anyone out there, but
Mr. John Calipari does not have a lot of tournament wins in the past 5 years.
upset to see Kentucky. I mean, I wasn't really upset, but like mentally knowing that I switched it last second for them to like go on a run, for them to just
Mhm.
get fucking bounced first round. I was very upset about that. Um, how many brackets did you end up making?
Dude, I always make like 20 brackets, but this year I only made three. And like I went through all three of them super quick, like didn't do research. I was kind of disappointed in myself. Uh, you're silent. I couldn't hear you. I can't hear you. Huh? Huh? No, I still can't hear you. Oh, no. No, what's going on? Um,
And then
oh, talk.
league sport frauds. I
You're back, but you have to like it doesn't like recognize you talking for the first second that you're talking. I couldn't hear that.
thought before I
I
like
can hear
actually
you
make a
now.
point. Okay, so that's what I'm gonna have to do. Unfortunately, sorry about that. But yeah, so my three bracket winners that I had, I made three brackets. I made Purdue winning one, Tennessee winning one, and UConn winning one. And all three of them made really good runs. So I was happy about that. But unfortunately, the only regions that I really kind of did good on was the Midwest. That was really the only like division throughout every bracket that I was like kind of on the money on. Every other bracket was washed. Like I said, I did not have Clemson going on a run. I did not have Bama going on a run. I tried to get fancy and have UConn getting upset by either BYU or Illinois in some of my brackets for whatever reason, because it just felt criminal to have UConn just going to the Final Four and going to the finals because they're that good. They're gonna have to get upset by someone. No, they're just good at basketball,
Yeah,
and
they're just that
that's
good.
just the way it was. So yeah, unfortunately, the Midwest was really the only region I consistently did good in. The rest of them were absolutely cooked.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I didn't even pay attention to my brackets this year. Like they were all three terrible from the start. I put zero thought into them. I had like no connection to them. So like I just focused on the betting side of it. But yeah, I've been up money so far, so got to keep it going.
you said that you had UConn and Purdue in the finals, and you had Purdue winning. Is that what you had?
Yep.
Okay. So we both are actually gonna have the same prediction. I have UConn and Purdue winning in a close game. Like I think it's gonna be a great game. I could see it going either
Uh-huh.
way.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
super excited for that game. What I think will be that game.
yeah, I'm gonna have Purdue winning it just because I think Zach Edey, even though, like you said, Klingon has been very promising, and he's been one of the best players in the tournament. And his
Mhm.
NBA draft stock has gone through the roof since this
I've
tournament.
I've seen mock drafts of the Thunder drafting him, which really no- I'm okay with that. We need him.
Would take it for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm gonna have Purdue winning slightly just because I think that picking UConn to go back to back is boring. And two, I kind of want Purdue to win a little bit more, and I think that Zach Edey can take over. And I think the guard play for both teams is pretty similar enough to the point where I think that you can pick Purdue and not have it be extremely outlandish. Because
I think
overall,
UConn's guards are quite a bit better personally.
dogs on their guards, but I've also been watching a lot of the Purdue games. Like I've been
Yeah.
watching a lot of the Purdue games, so I've been impressed with a lot how a lot of their guards have been shooting and
Mhm.
distributing the ball to Edie. And I think that that's going to have a little bit more play than UConn. But then again, if you were to tell me UConn won by 20, I also wouldn't be surprised. So it's
Yeah.
like I don't. At the end of the day, I don't really know what I'm saying because it's like it's a coin flip, and it's like I feel like UConn could easily not only win but blow them out just because they
Uh-huh.
haven't really seen one other than Illinois for 10 minutes of the game. Um, it wasn't really even Illinois being too much. It was just kind
Yeah.
of UConn wasn't playing the best. And then they turned it on and they went on a 30-0 run. And that was absolutely ridiculous.
Insane. Yeah. Well,
Fight on the
huh?
bracket, give it for the bracket.
Not really. I think that's good for basketball. You want to hit us like with a take or two?
Tweet that I found for this is not a tweet that I found online for buy or sell take, but it's a take that I've had in my mind that I've been thinking about that I
Bet.
know is a hot. I guess it's a hot take. I don't think it's like, but Victor Wembanyama is the best defensive player in the league at I even will go as far to say that I think he's the best defensive center of all time when it comes to peaks. Like, I don't think that when you look at Hakeem Olajuwon, you look at Mutombo, and you look at David Robinson, when you look at the best centers defensively in NBA history, I think Wembanyama's literally on their level, and if not better. I
You're
think that there's
already
a
saying that?
strong argument. I'm already saying that peak wise. Obviously, Wembanyama's played 1 year, and we've seen those guys do it for decades. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Okay. Yeah.
obviously, the longevity is not there. But I'm talking about like this is probably going to be the worst version of Wembanyama we're going to see. He's only going
Stupid.
to put on more size
Stupid.
and get more skilled, and yet he's already, I think, skill wise when it comes to defense, up. I mean, look, I found the stat thing that I want to read off to you because I think this is going to be fitting for how good and how underrated Wembanyama's been on defense. And people know how good he is on defense.
Oh yeah.
But I'm going to pull up Rudy Gobert's Defensive Player of the Years and his current season stats because he is the favorite to win the Defensive Player of the Year this
Hmm.
year, which I think is ridiculous. Team Defensive Player of the Year. He had 1,800 minutes, 44 steals, and 129 blocks. Defensive Player of the Year, very good. 20 minutes, 66 steals, 187 blocks. That's his best year was 2019. 66
Yeah.
steals and 187 blocks. He also won Defensive Player of the Year in 21. Again, 40 steals, 90 blocks. This year, he's the current favorite, 38 steals, 133 blocks. But I'm going to highlight Rudy Gobert's best season, where
66,
he had
187.
2,577 minutes, 66 blocks, or 66 steals, 187 blocks.
Yeah.
Wembanyama, his rookie year, stepping court on an NBA court against NBA players, being really the only person on defense that actually has value. 1,600 minutes. So significantly, we're talking
Less than half.
almost 1,000 minutes less than 2019 Rudy Gobert, where that's his by far his best defensive season. Rudy Gobert had 66 steals, 73 on 1,000 less minutes. Blocks. Rudy Gobert's 2019 Defensive Player of the Year, 187 blocks. Wembanyama already has 195, 1,000 less minutes.
What?
What I just read off was on March 12th, and it is April. We're weeks ago. A good rookie defensive season. This is one of the best defensive centers in NBA history already when we're talking about peaks.
That is insane.
That's not even, I'm not listing off those stats to be like, oh, Rudy Gobert's and Defensive Player of the Year seasons were not that good. No, those are some of he's one of the best defensive centers of all time. He's up there with Hakeem Olajuwon, David Robinson, and Mutombo. Like, he's up there. He's won 3 Defensive Player of the Years. He's in line to win his 4th. And Wembanyama shits, absolutely shits on every single season. And where it's like, oh, people are just chucking up shots, and that's why Wembanyama's getting those blocks. There's so many more times. Like, look up the clip of Curry where he goes in for a layup, gets blocked one time, and the rest of the game he didn't shoot anything. He didn't shoot another layup the rest of the game because he knew Wembanyama was going to get that shit out of here.
Yeah.
Like there's so many times where people don't shoot because Wembanyama's there. So that's not even an argument that you can have where it's just like, oh, like people respect Wemby. That's why, where it's like people, and then they're shooting over him, and that's why he's getting so many blocks. It's because you literally, if you are in the block, if you're within the paint, you cannot shoot without that shit getting smacked off the backboard. You literally can't. And that's why, sorry, like I kind of just went off on a tangent, but I got called that I didn't know ball because I said that Wembanyama was one of the greatest defensive centers of all time already. But look at the stats. Look
you
at the
should have
film.
pulled that stat up when we were talking about that.
It's like, why would I argue with someone who would call that outlandish? It's like, I'm not going to change their mind, but it's like, look at the stats. Look at the film. The film is there too. Like, he can guard 1 through 5. Wembanyama can guard 1 through 5 better than Hakeem could have. He can guard 1 through 5 better than David Robinson could have. He can guard 1 through 5 better than Mutombo could have. And yet when he comes for just as a center, as a defensive center, he's on par with them. So it's like, I don't understand how that's crazy for me to say. Yeah. I know the longevity's there. He's a rookie. Obviously, the longevity's not going to be there.
86 steals and 235 blocks right now.
Gobert's going to win. Bro, look, I looked at the betting
odds. Is this going to be the
Rudy
best
Gobert was
defensive season ever?
I can guarantee you if you look up any of Mutombo, Rob, I'm actually curious. Now I have to look this up. I'm gonna look
Yeah.
up. I'm gonna look up Mutombo's best defensive